Q101 is a very prestigious station. I happen to be a fan of the alternative rock music, and I am also a promoter of the alternative wrestling product. And it's why it means a lot to come here to Q101 and talk about it with you, Case. So thanks for having me on.
Ladies and gentlemen, how we doing? This is Case from Q101. Normally when you see me on this YouTube channel, of course, this is Case 4, where I talk to upcoming and emerging bands and alternative music. But today's guest needs no introduction, partially because he's been here before on Zoom, but it is my pleasure to bring to the Q101 Lounge Tony Khan. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, Case. Thanks for having me back here. It's great to be in person this time.
It's so nice. It's so nice. We'll see each other next week, of course, at the Wintrust Arena, AEW Dynamite and Collision. That is going to be November 27th. Tickets available at AEWTix.com. Of course, AEW Full Gear this Saturday. Where can people watch that?
That will be available on pay-per-view worldwide, cable, satellite, ppv.com, YouTube, Triller. So many great pay-per-view providers. We used to be on Bleacher Report for pay-per-view. Bleacher Report doesn't do pay-per-views anymore. So now you got to find us all these different places. Thankfully, most pay-per-view providers are carrying it. You can also go see it at a Dave & Buster's. This is going to be such a great wrestling show on Saturday. It's the biggest pay-per-view of the quarter. It is one of my favorite pay-per-view shows. I think it is quite possibly AEW's most consistent event since our first year. Full Gear is always a great show. You can count on this being an awesome event, and there's so much buzz on Full Gear, the great matches, and also a lot of anticipation we built with that November Rain music video, fitting being here at Q101, this great hall of music, this great music icon station, and we had this amazing music video that told so many of the great stories in AEW, and it gives you a good picture of everything happening right now going into Full Gear. If you haven't watched this video yet, I would say check out the video, and you're going to want to watch the Full Gear pay-per-view this Saturday. Before then, everybody can watch AEW tonight. We're on 7 p.m. on TBS tonight, and it's a great preview of the action all the fans in Chicago will get in person next Wednesday, the 27th, Thanksgiving Eve. It's going to be a great show at the Wintrust Arena here in Chicago. It's a great tradition bringing AEW to Chicago around Thanksgiving time, and I cannot wait for this show in particular because next Wednesday will be the kickoff of the Continental Classic Tournament. It is so, so exciting. It's my favorite time of year. Fans loved this tournament last year. In case, I can't wait to start the Continental Classic here in Chicago next Wednesday.
I can't wait either. I'm very excited about that. But the thing I like about you is that we're on the same wavelength, because my first question was going to be about this November Rain video, how it came about. How did you attain the rights to do November Rain? And obviously, you know, the inspiration behind it is ECW, but talk to me about creating the AEW version of it.
Well, I really had always wanted to utilize November Rain since I was a kid. It's something I'd wanted to see, and it's been decades since that song was utilized to promote a wrestling event.
That's right.
And I don't think anybody had ever actually paid Guns N' Roses for it. And they were great to work with. And so far, the reception has been tremendous. We're going to update the video again going into the pay-per-view with what happens tonight on Dynamite. And it's going to be a great event. And I wanted the fans to see all the exciting stories and matches happening in AEW and what has been going on, catch up all the fans, and also for the fans who've been paying attention, it gave them a great look at what's to come this weekend on the pay-per-view. And that song, November Rain, it's a long song.
It's a long song. It's a whole 8 minutes.
Yeah, it was actually almost 9. I think it's 8
God.
minutes and 57 seconds. I went to the University of Illinois, and I grew up in Champaign, and my parents lived, probably about 8 or 9 minutes off campus, and we always used to joke my house is about November Rain from my apartment and my dorm. So leaving the campus to go back to my parents' house, I could play November Rain, and right as the song was wrapping up, I'd be pulling into my parents' driveway or vice versa.
I love that. The video is absolutely beautiful. The last time we talked, some of the feedback that we got that I was so excited for was we got to know a little bit about Tony Khan, the wrestling fan. We know you as this figurehead, one of the most influential people in the business, but we started to talk a little bit about that last time, and I'm curious now with the busy schedule that you keep with not only AEW, but with everything else you have going on, are there times where you're just able to sit down and watch old wrestling that you don't own? Are you able to be on a flight and go, you know what, I want to watch hardcore TV from 1995 right now? Do you have that time? Do you have that desire? Do you watch any wrestling that isn't yours at this point?
Yeah, I try to keep up on other international wrestling, and that is stuff happening now.
Yeah.
So I watch a lot of international wrestling. As far as old wrestling, I do watch a lot of the Mid-South wrestling, and I enjoy a lot of the Southern territories and things like that. So Mid-South and Memphis wrestling, I do watch a lot of that. I know Jeff Jarrett very well. His family, Jarrett Promotions, the USWA, they put on great wrestling in Memphis for many, many years. That's one of my favorite promotions to go back and watch, but also the old Bill Watts, Mid-South, and UWF.
Of course. That is one of the things that I really appreciate about AEW is obviously we know your love of Mid-South, and we know your love of ECW, and this year being able to see Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness come into fruition in 2024 was just an amazing thing for anybody that appreciates the history of Ring of Honor. I think something that we'll start seeing over the next few years is people that want to be the next Tony Khan, and I mean that in a very complimentary way, people that appreciate the history of wrestling that want to set their own path forward. To the younger viewers out there, is there a year of a specific promotion, whether it's 85 Mid-South or it's 94 ECW or 2006 Ring of Honor? What is the thing that you think everybody should be watching that is perhaps unrepresented in modern wrestling today, something older?
What a great question. I do love the 1984 Mid-South. It's funny how it comes down to years, doesn't it? Even today. But absolutely, I think the 1984 Mid-South is some of my absolute favorite wrestling television anyone's ever done. I really like what Memphis was doing in 1987. I think that's some really good stuff. Some of the great companies like All Japan in 1995 had a great year. And 1996.
94 is pretty good. 97 is pretty good,
Oh yeah, 90s All Japan was excellent. So there's
2000 Noah you filter in there, and then it's all wonderful, isn't it?
It's great to be on a show where we can talk about 2000 Noah.
This is why I'm here. We could do this. I forget AEW. We can talk 2000 Noah all day.
Well, I can do that. I obviously have a AEW to promote, but I will gladly talk some old Noah and old New Japan. And the Continental Classic kicks off here in Chicago next week. It is a tournament that I think has only one peer in wrestling, and that is the G1.
That's right.
And it's our second year doing the Continental Classic. The G1 is a great tradition that goes back many, many years. But really, when the Continental Classic launched, I think it quenched the thirst here in America for such a tournament. And we have such great wrestlers in AEW. So I'm really looking forward to bringing the tournament and starting it here next Wednesday in Chicago. It's going to be a great event. And it's very fitting that it starts here in what may be the best wrestling city on the entire planet in Chicago.
When can we expect the full lineup for the Continental Classic? When can we expect the wrestlers involved?
It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. After Full Gear,
Okay.
I need to see what happens. We need to see the results of Full Gear, who's injured, who's going to be able to maintain that standard of wrestling for the rest of the year, up until the culmination of the Continental Classic. It was a great tournament last year, and I think even though I would love to say all the names before Full Gear, I think some of them will make more sense after, and also there's the potential for injury, and I would not want to announce the field and then immediately have to take it back. I would rather just do it right after Full Gear, which is the plan.
That makes sense. It was around this time last year, I believe it was right before the Continental Classic started, that you encouraged some AEW viewers that wanted to see more of, for lack of a better term, a sports-style presentation of the product to put their money where their mouth was. And it seemed like the Continental Classic last year, at least from a television ratings perspective, was a massive success. I think as the tournament went on, you saw quarter hours grow. Are you happy with the results that you got last year out of the Continental Classic?
Yes, absolutely. I was thrilled with the Continental Classic. It was unfortunate that the winner, Eddie Kingston, was injured and really has not competed for most of the year.
That's right.
And that was unfortunate. And I think now looking at the field this year, we're going to have a tremendous, tremendous group in the Continental Classic this year. Hopefully everybody that I want to use in the tournament makes it through Full Gear unscathed, or maybe scathed, but just scathed enough where they'll still be able to wrestle in the Continental Classic week in, week out. And I think the tournament was very well received, and that's why I'm so excited to bring it back this year and make it a tradition going forward. I loved the Continental Classic, and I think it brought something really exciting to AEW. Fans can count on great wrestling matches. Everyone's banned from ringside. There'll be no outside interference, and it's one-on-one matches. I think everybody really came together and made it a great tournament, the fans, the staff, and the wrestlers. And I can't wait to bring it back this year and kick it off here in Chicago next Wednesday.
It's happening. I can't wait. Let's talk about live events because, you know, here at Q101, we work within the music industry, right? And we've seen, especially since the pandemic, massive trends in ticket buying sales that come and go. You know, 6 months, there'll be a period of 6 months where all the arena shows sell out and we see the lower level stuff not do so well. And then it flips and it's all unexpected and it's always changing. You've been running AEW now for 5 years. How has the live entertainment industry changed in the 5 years you've been running it?
It's a great question. I think there was a big shift in the middle. There was the lockdown really changed everything, and it turned out to be a really successful period for AEW. We were able to put all the shows for over 1 year in Jacksonville, and then since we came out of that and started touring again, it's been just over 3 years. And in those 3 years, it's been absolutely great being back on the road. We've gotten to go places and do things nobody ever dreamed were possible. You know, when I was a kid, like I wrote wrestling shows in notebooks and in word processors and Microsoft Word, programs that don't exist anymore, Microsoft Write, and used to be where everything was kept for me and posted on message boards. And it's always been Dynamite, and it's amazing to be able to come back here. I grew up in Illinois, and to come back and always spend my Thanksgivings in Chicago my entire life, and to be able to come and bring a Thanksgiving Dynamite, the show I've been writing since I was 12 years old, it means a lot. But there's things we've done in AEW that I never dreamed would be possible. And, after we went back on the road, expanding AEW, going to Canada, and then going international touring, we went to Wembley Stadium and sold 81,000 tickets for AEW All In. We set the world record, 81,035 tickets. The pro wrestling attendance record is held by AEW. That's something really amazing to me. And to put it in perspective, when I was a kid and wrote a Wembley Stadium show on paper, in my imagination, we only drew 80,000. So we outdrew even my wildest dreams with 81,035. And that was, my dream really was to do that. So we've gotten to do so many great things. Live events here in America, domestically, it's a really interesting thing. Like you said, we've seen great demand in some of the big markets, and I think that's something to keep an eye on for AEW. That really, no surprise, the markets where AEW is drawn the best are the major markets that typically have had NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball teams, or big college towns, especially when school's in session. Mm-hmm. And I think that looking at the markets where we've had that success, there's something to it. Pro wrestling, it's a 52-week-a-year business, so we cover a lot of ground, go to a lot of different markets. And in the major markets, we've had good success. I do think it's a good question about where live events are going. I don't think you can really put one label on, all events. I think whether it's wrestling, music, sports, they're all trending differently. Something really exciting for AEW that I think will cover us for a long time is we just renewed our media rights deal.
Congratulations, by the way.
And we know that, thank you, I really appreciate it, Case. Since I last saw you, it's been a really, really successful time for us. And now we know that AEW will not only be on TBS and TNT for years to come, but also streaming on Max. So we're going to be bringing a lot of great events in the future. We know that. And the future of our TV and streaming is really secure. And as far as where we're going to present our live events and what markets we're going to hit, it's something to really look at, because I think we've had great success in a lot of major A towns, and I think Chicago has been first and foremost for us. So that's something for us to continue to study and evaluate, is what our best performing markets are, and trying to hit those an appropriate amount of time.
Yeah. Can we expect to see more residencies in AEW's future? I thought the Collision residency where you debuted Hologram, which we talked about last time, and just how phenomenal he's been, and hopefully he's healthy and is able to wrestle here sometime soon. But, I loved the residency of Collision. I love that atmosphere. I love the way it looked on camera. Is that something we can expect more of in 2025?
Yeah, I thought it was excellent, and I give so much of the credit to those people in Arlington. Our team did a great job putting it together, and then the fans, week in, week out, those fans around the Dallas Metroplex did a great job. We have great fans here in Chicago that I think could deliver week in, week out. Obviously, we saw there were great fans there around Dallas that delivered week in, week out. I think it's a great model and could be something to go back to. Certainly, some of the most successful times ever in AEW were kind of a forced residency in the lockdown in Daly's place.
Yes,
we found a great home and a great rhythm. And we started to get back into that at that Arlington Collision, and I think it started to translate on the show too, where it felt like we were getting in a rhythm, almost like a golfer who's like starting to put some good holes together. And I don't know if there's a lot of golf references here on Q101.
We'll start it now. This is from now on a golf station. We like it.
You know what's funny? When we looked at interests of AEW fans, two of the top things that came up, alternative music and golf.
Well, you know why that is? Because statistically, you have a more educated and a more wealthy fan base than other wrestling companies out there.
It's true. Well, those are, I guess, that speaks highly of alternative music and golf, which are two things I love. And so I do think, going forward, it's something to think about. The residencies, it's a great question because the ones we've done have performed very, very well.
Good. You mentioned the media rights deal. I want to talk about that because in my industry and in your industry, we both know how fickle Nielsen can be. And television itself has changed a lot in the 5 years you've been running AEW. God bless Brandon Thurston at WrestleNomics, but every Thursday when that chart hits public, there becomes an immediate reaction of what was AEW Dynamite's rating this week. And that hasn't changed. That was, prevalent in September of 2019 or October when Dynamite launched. And it's prevalent now. We still see it.
Yeah.
Do you think that the average consumer of AEW, somebody that pays attention to that sort of thing, are they looking at Nielsen ratings with 2019 eyes instead of 2024 eyes? Have you changed the way you measure success in television as the years have gone on?
Well, I'm not sure the average fan actually pays attention to that.
Fair.
I think that the person watching the show typically is watching because they like the wrestling show. Mm-hmm. And that's something for me to keep perspective on too, because I think sometimes and myself, I'm absolutely guilty of it myself. I think we all sometimes think of the super fans like ourselves, and we all have such nuanced opinions, and we remember what show did a rating 3.5 years ago and what was on against it, or if there was like a power outage or like a big event on the news that night. And it's insane that we remember these things so well. But it's pro wrestling, and with 52 weeks a year, we've all really sharpened our minds over the years to have these memories, and it's week in, week out. I do think cable has changed a lot, and it's amazing to look at how wrestling has sustained. And as the cable universe has changed and the streaming audience has grown, wrestling has still delivered. AEW has still delivered at a very, very high level week in, week out. And even recently, we're seeing great numbers, and compared to other sports on television, AEW is putting up huge numbers week in, week out, and still one of the top shows on television after all these years. Our shows have had double-digit gains week in, week out, where Dynamite was up a huge amount since the election's over. And Collision, over the last several weeks, has gone up 3 straight weeks. So I think getting out from the World Series and the election cycle, which is the first time we've ever had them at the same time, because the last election cycle was in COVID and the sports
that's right, everything was stacked
timing
up.
of sports was all messed up. So really, for us, it was great to be able to go into November with Full Gear, this event that fans love every year, get fans excited, play the November Rain video, and really get people back into that groove. So for us, I do think it's important to look at how the universe changes. Things will change again next year because a lot of the audience will be exposed to AEW for the first time. There's people that don't have cable or satellite anymore, and they mostly have cut the cord and they stream. and having AEW live on Max, it's going to open so many new fans up to the experience for the first time ever. Will be available in almost twice as many homes as we are now,
Really?
Starting in January. It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really exciting time, and I hope we can make some new wrestling fans and new AEW fans when AEW goes to Max, and we have a great opportunity to close the year out strong. Like you said, there's so much buzz around the Continental Classic, and I think it's a perfect way to end the year and then launch the streaming era.
When it comes to Chicago, obviously one of the things I'm most excited about next week is you have the stars of CMLL. You have Mystico and Mascara Dorada coming to Chicago, correct?
Yes.
All right. Talk to me about your CMLL relationship a little bit. This is how we kicked off the interview last time. I'm so fascinated by the idea that CMLL is the oldest wrestling promotion in the world. I find a lot of their success to be undocumented or just simply not cared about in the American wrestling world. They have been largely isolationist outside of their relationship with New Japan that has been ongoing. You have cracked the seal. You have welcomed the CMLL stars into America with open arms. Somebody like Hechicero, who I've watched for years, is now a guy that I see on TV, on TNT, and it's this incredible thing. Talk to me just about the CMLL relationship overall. Do you find that it's been a successful project thus far?
Yes, absolutely. I love working with CMLL. Salvador and his family have been so good to us, and there's a reason these people have been in business for over 90 years. They're great professionals. They're great people, and I'm honored to have built the relationship with Salvador and CMLL that we've been able to put together. And over the past year, some of the biggest stars in Mexico have come into AEW, and we've seen great results for them. They've clashed with some of our top stars, and we've seen the CMLL fighters come into AEW and really hold their own. Mystico, in particular, has gone undefeated here, which is something, as a fan, I am very proud to have Mystico and CMLL in AEW because when WCW went out of business, I really got into CMLL for the first time. I needed another wrestling show to watch, and it was 2002, and I had just started college at University of Illinois, and I would tape the CMLL shows at my parents' house on their DirecTV, and then I would go pick up the tapes, and I would go, speaking of Lucha Libre and being here in Chicago, the Cubs fan is a guy who has a great Lucha blog and still does. He's been doing it for over 20 years, I think 25 years probably, and that's where I learned a lot because they didn't have necessarily all the explanations in English of what was happening on the show. So I really would learn a lot about it from him, who was wrestling who and what the stories were. And I became a big fan. Mystico is such a great star and a big box office attraction. And
everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
Everywhere he goes.
So I'm so excited to bring Mystico to Chicago next week. It's Mystico's AEW Chicago debut.
That's right.
Next week. And I'm so excited for that. And great to get those stars here next Wednesday. It's November 27th, Thanksgiving Eve. And the stars of CMLL have done very well for us. And the stars of AEW have gone to Mexico and done very, very well also. And they've been really well received. It was nice to go down there, have the AEW stars, and see big names like Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, Chris Jericho, Mercedes Moné, to see how well received. I mean, when the BCC went down there, they were getting some of the biggest reactions.
It was insane.
Anybody. It was awesome.
Yeah, and Matt Sydal was there too.
Well, and Matt did excellent.
Matt did excellent. You know why? Because Matt's excellent at everything. One of the most unheralded wrestlers I think there is. I hope he's healthy soon because I miss seeing Matt Sydal on TV.
I miss Matt Sydal too. He's a great guy, and he's a great, great talent. We're very fortunate to have Matt in AEW. I really like and respect Matt, and it's a good point you made. And he was there, and he did great.
And Wheeler was injured at the time, and so you plug in Matt Sydal because he's a professional, he can work any style, and I thought he killed it there with the rest of Claudio and Moxley and Bryan Danielson.
He did excellent, and Wheeler had been concussed from the match with Eddie Kingston in Jacksonville, and that is a great, great point. And those guys went down there, and boy, did they do excellent. And then Bryan Danielson and Blue Panther, and
the match that he had been wanting for a decade. I mean, publicly talking about it. And again, it's why I'm thankful that AEW exists because, Danielson wasn't going to wrestle Blue Panther in any other scenario. And then, you saw Claudio go over there for the Grand Prix. Claudio and Hechicero and CMLL a month from now. I can't wait.
Yeah.
This partnership has really become a wonderful thing for wrestling.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I can't wait eventually to bring AEW for the first time ever to Mexico.
Are there plans to do so?
Well, I have never said so, but I will say sooner or later it absolutely has to happen. And if I could go anywhere in Mexico and work with anyone in Mexico, I would love to go to Arena Mexico and work with CMLL and bring AEW there for the first time ever. It would be amazing. And I think Salvador would be open to having us there. And if you would have us, it would be an honor to go to Arena Mexico and bring AEW there sometime.
I would love to see that. I know your time is valuable, so I have 2 more questions for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Full Gear is this Sunday, or Saturday. Full Gear is this Saturday.
It's NFL season. We do them on Saturday.
You're right, and I love you for that. I love a good Saturday pay-per-view. I know you could talk for hours about the card and everything that you're excited to see. Give me number 1 with the bullet point. What's the thing you're most excited for Full Gear this Saturday?
Jon Moxley, Orange Cassidy. When AEW first brought a pay-per-view into the city of Chicago, it was Revolution 2020 at the Wintrust Arena. We'll be back at the Wintrust Arena right after Full Gear, so it's very fitting. And coming out of Full Gear, you know, like I said, the Continental Classic starts. It'll be a huge show Wednesday night, the 27th, Thanksgiving Eve. But before then, Full Gear, I'm so excited for Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy because when we started AEW the first year, Jon Moxley from the first night reigned as the king of this place. He stood atop the poker chips at the first Double or Nothing, and he was the king. And he won the world title for the first time ever in AEW at Revolution 2020. He beat Chris Jericho in the Wintrust Arena. It was in the same building where Jon Moxley made history earlier this year. He won the IWGP world title and became the first man ever to hold the AEW, WWE, and IWGP world titles in his career. He's now recaptured the AEW title for the 4th time, which makes history. He's a 6-time world champion, and he's a legend of the sport. And some of his greatest moments have happened here in Chicago. And also at the Wintrust Arena at Revolution 2020, one of the most memorable things about the evening, and for AEW, by far the most watched match in the history of AEW. Nothing comes even close. It's by far the biggest success digitally in the history of the company. Orange Cassidy made his debut in AEW, and it was against Jon Moxley's partner, his stablemate, Pac.
That's right.
And it is one of the longest standing rivalries in AEW. They've had some of the greatest wars in AEW, and Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley at Full Gear. Last year, when you look at where the company was, they stepped up at AEW All Out here around Chicago, and they had the great main event. And coming out of All Out, Jon Moxley and Orange Cassidy continued to battle. Last year at Full Gear, Orange Cassidy recaptured the title. And now, looking at how much the company's changed over a year, so much rides on this match. Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley, they're 2 of the greatest stars since the beginning of the company. And now we're going back to a pay-per-view that was the first pay-per-view we ever did after Dynamite started. It was we had that great build in 2019 to Full Gear. And that's why I was so excited to show that November Rain video, show what's happening with Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley and the world title picture, and with the Death Riders and Jon Moxley, and how that has kickstarted so many different things around AEW, whether it was pushing Private Party to their limit and Private Party finally breaking through after it took Survive and Mox getting hit by the hammer by Mox.
That's right.
And they stepped up and they won the world tag titles. We've seen how it affected the Elite. Daniel Garcia has been a big part of Team AEW fighting Jack Perry. And then seeing all the other rivalries in AEW that have emerged. Hangman Page and Jay White, what a history they have. I can't wait for their match, and it was good to be able to show some clips of their history. I mean, I think the next time you see that November Rain video going into the pay-per-view, I might have even more footage from their history
Is that right?
Jay White and Hangman Page. I showed some from Ring of Honor. I might even get some more from New Japan. What a great match they had at Wrestle Dream. One of my favorite finishes to any pay-per-view match of all time when Hangman went for that buckshot and got caught in the Blade Runner. What a moment. And you could see the whole place, the Tacoma Dome just exploded when Hangman got caught in that Blade Runner and Jay White won that match. And Jay White historically has had Hangman Page's number. Talk about our great stars and somebody who's been huge here since day one in AEW and literally here in Chicago, Hangman Page. And Hangman Page, Jay White, that's going to be a great, great match this weekend at the pay-per-view. There's so many great things. Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher.
Of course.
That is a huge match and a huge rivalry that's really emerged. So
it's a Will Ospreay pay-per-view match. It's just going to be incredible. It's worth the price of admission.
And Kyle has really come into his own, and I think Kyle is looking to make it a statement for himself too. So it is a Will Ospreay pay-per-view match, but Kyle Fletcher is delivering the goods himself this year, and I think that's going to be a great, great match. But it all starts, to me, with Jon Moxley and Orange Cassidy.
That's right.
It's going to be great.
Well, that's AEW Full Gear. Again, AEW Dynamite and Collision. That is at the Wintrust Arena, November 27th, AEWTix.com. My last question for you, and I know you're not going to want to answer this, but I'm going to see what I can get out of you. Last week, we had the results of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame come out. Can I ask you, because I know you vote, I vote in it, I'm sure you vote in it, can I ask who was on your Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame ballot?
I'll be honest, this year there's a lot of things going on. I did not vote.
Really?
Yeah. I do not think I would be able to commit because there's research. You have to go back, and if I'm going to do a good ballot, I would have to go back and watch some of the 1950s and 60s wrestling, some international wrestling from the 60s, 70s, and there's so many things going on that I would not have been able to do it. I was, even though we've had disagreements in wrestling and outside of wrestling, I have a ton of respect for the Young Bucks, so I was very happy to see the Young Bucks get in. This year, I thought, was a banner year for them. The match they had with Sting and Darby was one of the greatest tag matches in the history of the sport. We gave Sting the best send-off we could have, and I think if there's one thing 99%, I mean, you'll never get 100% of people to agree with anything. I mean, we could take a poll, is water wet, and probably only 99% would say yes. So I think 99% of people would agree Sting deserved a great, great, great retirement, and he got one. And we gave Sting the perfect send-off, and the Young Bucks were a huge part of that. They held up. What a great match it was, Young Bucks versus Sting and Darby, and I thought it was very fitting that after a great match like that they would be in the Hall of Fame. And other than that, no, I hadn't. This year with so many things happening because I also work in football.
You're a busy guy. I get it.
Yeah, but no, this year you're the first person to ask me. It's a great question, Case. This year I did not vote because I didn't think I would do justice to a lot of the international and historical candidates because I didn't have time to go review the footage and also do a study of the history of some of those international candidates and some of those people, and I honestly did not want to be the reason why a deserving person didn't get in or vice versa.
Shima got in by one vote this year, and my heart would have been broken had Shima not gotten in for another year. AEW alum, of course. Shima.
Great.
So.
Great. I have a ton of respect for Shima. I think he's wrestling under the Boudreaux name right now.
Yes, he is.
But I love Shima, and I haven't seen him in a long time, but a big respect for Shima, and I'm glad he got in too. Somebody from the original AEW's
past.
Day one guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tony, I can't thank you enough for your time. Before you go, anything else you want to let the Q101 audience know? Now is the chance.
Well, thank you, Case, for the opportunity. The show is a week from today. It's Wednesday, November 27th. It's at the Wintrust Arena. It's going to be an absolutely amazing event. It will be a great time, and it's a great way to spend Thanksgiving Eve. If you're the kind of person that goes out afterwards, it'll be a good night, and you may see us out after the show too. So we're going to have a great time, and before then, Full Gear is this Saturday. It's one of the best wrestling pay-per-views of the year. It's coming up Saturday, November 23rd, just days from now. You're going to want to see this show. You can order it on pay-per-view, cable, satellite, AEW Full Gear. You can stream it. Or you can go to Dave & Buster's and watch it. It's a good time, I promise. And also, most of all, I just wanted to thank you for having me here. We've got a show tonight on TBS. It's on at 7 o'clock. It's going to be a great show. And then a week from tonight, we're back here in Chicago. And I just really appreciate you taking all the time. You're a really big wrestling fan, and Q101 is a very prestigious station. I happen to be a fan of the alternative rock music, and I am also a promoter of the alternative wrestling product. And it's why it means a lot to come here to Q101 and talk about it with you, Case. So thanks for having me on.
Tony, I can't thank you enough. Q101's YouTube channel, don't forget to like and subscribe and set the notification for when new videos come out. I'm on Instagram, if you like this video, @_Case Lowe. That is CaseLowa. Tony Khan, thank you so much.
Thanks, Case.